13 graded races run in Ireland over the festive period at Leopardstown, Limerick and Fairyhouse, shared between just 3 stables. 5 wins for Gordon, 1 win for Jessica Harrington, 7 wins for Willie Mullins. But we'll begin with the staying chasers, the King George and the Savills Chase, as the Shark, guest on the Final Furlong podcast. We had him on the show when he was still a 33-1 shot. You surely would have backed him after hearing how bullish he was. I was thinking place prospects, really, Dennis. I thought that's how it was going to be, but it's the dream scenario for them. That being said, if Shishkin had stood up, would he have won the King George?
He would, I'd say, Emmet, in my opinion. Yeah, I think Shishkin would have won, and I think Allaho would have been second. It would have been tight there. Would have been a tight finish with Hewick as well. I know it looks that Hewick won well at the line, and he did, and it was great. Fantastic ride. You can see how it was going to pan out. I've done it myself 100 times more. It's in obviously lesser races, but it was that there was so much pace, and they went a very strong gallop in the race from the outset. But it wasn't even that. They went a nice gallop. They went a good gallop early on. But then Shishkin, as you watch, and they passed the stands the second time, he gets right up there. Nico gets on and appears to have added more force to the pace from there on, which, none of the horses got a breather then at any stage. And Hewick was hanging in there, and obviously they were riding him for a place the whole way around. But then when Shishkin added the extra tempo to the race on the final circuit, that is when Hewick got badly outpaced. And to his credit, he never missed a fence. For a handy little horse, he never missed a fence. Gavin Sheehan gave him a top class ride, and I even said turning in that he wasn't far enough out of sight yet to say that he couldn't pose a danger in the straight if they had gone too quick. He was still within 6 lengths of them, of the third horse. So he was still within 6-7 lengths of them coming out of the back straight and even into the straight. He still wasn't far enough out of it to say that he couldn't be involved in the finish from there on. And but when Shishkin jumped the second last and obviously took a stride, he impeded Brave Man's game, left Allaho in front, and then Allaho pulled up in front, and because that's what he does. And I couldn't say that he definitely doesn't stay the trip. Allaho, he may be a weaker finisher at that trip, but I would say he idled more than that. I would say if Shishkin had stood up, I would have said Shishkin would have went on and won, and Allaho would have been a good second. And I think Hewick would have been third, and that's my view in the race. As it turned out, Hewick was a good winner in the end, and maybe a fortuitous one, maybe not, but he still, he doesn't, it's just such a magnificent story, isn't it? Incredible story, great for racing, great for Shark and his team, good for his son, Paddy Hanlon, who rides him work, was there to lead him up. I mean, I seen pictures of them the day before eating their Christmas dinner in a Kempton racecourse as a family, and I thought, they deserve a bit of luck for doing that. That's what it takes, to do to get results. And that's my take on it. If Shishkin didn't fall, I reckon Hewick might have been maybe fourth, third at best, because I do believe that Allaho pulled up in front when he'd nothing to aim at, and if Shishkin had stayed in front of him, he would have been a good second to Shishkin, and I think Hewick would have been third. And that was my initial view. That was what I thought immediately as they crossed the line. Even
well, the Brave Man's Game backers are surely reacting to Dennis's line, George, and thinking, what Brave Man's Game? Surely he'd have won without the interference when Shishkin falls. It was his race. I don't think so, personally. I think he had plenty of time to be able to make up for it. So would Shishkin have won had he stood up? Would Brave Man's Game have won had it not been for that interference?
I couldn't comfortably say if Shishkin would have won or not, just knowing what he's like. I half think the reason he's taken Frodon on as early as he was just Nico found him travelling in his hands and knowing what he's like, well, I'm not going to take a pull out of him in case he sulks. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I just, with that sort of horse, I'd be struggling to say whether he'd have won or not. I'd be a touch more positive about Brave Man's Game. I thought, as they came down to the second last, he looked far more likely to be hitting the front than Allaho did. And Shishkin's unseat sort of handed Allaho a 4 or 5 length head start over him. And he's made it all back by the line. Like, I think, certainly, I think Brave Man's Game, you would be really encouraged by that. Like, if you were thinking of backing for Cheltenham. And to be honest, like, in a picture that's sort of slowly falling apart, the Gold Cup picture, like, at bar the favourite, you could probably do worse than backing Brave Man's Game each way at a decent price, because Allaho's not going to go there now. You know, so Jerry Colom's got questions to answer, and beyond that, it's quite shallow. Obviously, you can't discount Hewick either. Like, while the fast pace has sort of dragged him into it, giving him a chance, like, they're going to go pretty quick in the Gold Cup as well. Like, you wouldn't be saying he's without a chance. But yeah, the other thing I'd say with the fast pace is, with Frodon making the running, I think every jockey in that field at some points probably fallen foul of giving Frodon an easy lead. And although he's not getting any younger, and they probably didn't think he was a threat, I think they were far more cautious of letting him have a free in front than they maybe have been in the past. And that's contributed to them going quite fast on the first circuit. Then Shishkin taking him on meant they've gone even quicker. And like Dennis said, they just never got a breather, most of those horses. And Hewick's just flown home when his stamina's kicked in.
I could take a very positive view about Brave Man's Game with a view to the Gold Cup, and you could make the argument that he's a cracking each way bet at 20s with a number of firms. There's another way of looking at it too. Either he's feeling the effects of a hard run in the Gold Cup, which many horses do, or this is as good as he is. And last year he didn't have to face Gentleman's Game and Hewick. And Royal Pagaille at Haydock around 3 mile 2 on soft ground is a very different Royal Pagaille to 3 miles at Kempton. And maybe that's what it is. Do you see anything in that, Dennis? Is it just possible that this is who Brave Man's Game is and this is the form he can run to?
No, I think he's a bit below form. And I think they got caught on the hop first day he ran a Weatherby. The ground was softer than they thought, and probably didn't meet a horse with the Gentleman's Game is a pretty rock solid horse. Like, in Ireland, he's a bit below grade 1 in Ireland, but he's certainly up to winning a grade 2 Charlie Hall, so I would say they got caught a little bit on fitness the first day in Weatherby, and then it was a strange decision to run him in the Betfair Chase, in where he took in another extremely hard race off the back of a hard race. And, he then ran now in the King George and had another hard race. And to me, they don't look like they're training him for this one big day this year. I feel like they're throwing all their darts at the dartboard. And I do agree with both of you. He possibly is a each way chance in the Gold Cup, but there's certainly, he's with the likes of Fast or Slow now. Jerry Colom, he's definitely in the picture as well. Like, they're definitely, there's going to be more, even 1 or 2 more. He's going to do well. Like, he's going to do well to. I just think he got a very hard race in the Gold Cup last year as well, for a horse that isn't a doer stayer. The Gold Cup's an extra half mile, so up a hill. So I'd love to see him run the Grand National. I know it's run over 4 mile, but that's a different sort of a test. But he's such a fluent jumper, a quick, classy jumper on a flat track would be brilliant for him too. Look, he on his form last year, he's certainly in it each way, but it's looking to me more likely that they'll take their time more with Hewick this year, so he's more likely to be involved in the finish in the Gold Cup than he was last year. He wasn't that far out of it last year when he fell, but he was prominent all the way, up there the whole way. But this year, he could take his time, and he could nick a play spot. But yeah, I think he's Brave Man's Game. To me, he appears to be a bit below his best. But even at that, he's had a couple of hard races on the run up to the King George.
Yeah. Well, you'd imagine that the the way the race is going to pan out, and just with the way the form has panned out as well for Brave Man's Game and Conflated, neither of them have really done anything to advertise the form in any particular way. So maybe if Hewick had stood up, you might have actually gotten second in the Gold Cup on the basis of what Brave Man's Game and Conflated have been doing.
He probably wouldn't, Emmet. No, in all fairness, like, you know, any of the good judges looking at it, you know, he'd have been fifth or sixth, you know, in last year's Gold Cup. He was ridden very prominently last year in the Gold Cup. But sure, it's clear and obvious, like, that if they take their time with the horse, you know, he's going to, you don't have to bust the stair, like, you know, and everyone knows that. So if he takes his time in the Gold Cup this year and they fly up front, which they should, then, you know, he's got a great chance of running on into a place again, you know. It's you know, that's the way I view it, you know. I just thought he was ridden very handy last year in the Gold Cup, you know, and they feel he's just a stayer. But I feel that horse needs a chance at some stage in the race. Will they go too fast in the Gold Cup like they did in the King George? Maybe they won't, you know. Maybe there'll be some bit of sense there, you know. So it might be difficult for him, but he's a good horse, Hewick. He's a good horse, but I find him myself thinking that he's still in the fourth is best he could do, you know, in the Gold Cup.
Said when it comes to the Gold Cup itself, they're all going to have to find something to beat Galopin Des Champs, because clearly the Gold Cup George has really left a mark on him. He's just not the same horse. He's a shell of the horse he once was. He's a take-on horse forevermore. My goodness, this was stunning. That's a career best performance from Galopin Des Champs.
Yeah, it'd have to be. It absolutely have to be. It was, like I say, breathtaking what he's done to, like, you look where Conflated and Jerry Colomb were at the last. Even if Jerry Colomb's underperformed, he would have smashed Conflated, and he's a fairly reliable yardstick. Like, he looked like benefited from being ridden a bit handier. Like, he was able to use his jumping a bit more, which is always his weapon. Like, there's been a lot of talk about, like, they half tried to turn him into a stayer last year and switch him off and that, and he sort of almost switched off too much first time out, to the point where he was almost sort of chipping in at all his fences, not really taking a cut. But he seemed to really enjoy being ridden handy away again. He's incredible, isn't he? Like, if he can go and replicate what he did in the Gold Cup again last year, we'll have to start talking about him in some fairly lofty terms, up with the likes of Cato Star and that, won't we?
Oh, very much so. I think it is worth repeating that in the 99-year history of the race, there's only been 8 multiple winners for the Gold Cup, which is an extremely low number when you really think about it. But
can you name them
one of those multiple... Oh, God. No, I can't. Let's do the quiz in December 2024. Touch wood, we'll all be well. Dennis, you can get studying for it now. We'll do the Final Furlong Podcast Christmas quiz, and we'll remember to put that question in. Name the maybe 9 multiple winners of the Gold Cup. Maybe GDC will have done it. He's certainly the one they all have to beat. But it is worth remembering, the positives are Willie Mullins trained Album Photo to win 2 Gold Cups. I don't think those Gold Cups were anywhere near as strong as this particular one is going to be. This is going to be a really, really strong Gold Cup, and that's no disrespect to Album Photo and what he achieved. But Seymour Business won a Gold Cup, won a King George, got beaten as an odds-on favourite in it. Denman couldn't retain his Gold Cup crown. I know he had issues. Cato Star could never defend his Gold Cup crown either. He's the only horse in history to regain it, but couldn't defend it. And yet he was winning King Georges and Betfair Chases in between. The point I'm making is it's very difficult to defend the Gold Cup crown. And it looks real easy right now. But there's a reason Galopin Des Champs is not just a strong, heavy, odds-on favourite with everyone going, you can have whatever price you want about the rivals. Because the odds compilers are looking at this, Dennis, and they're thinking, this might be a little bit more open than some people are thinking.
Oh, yeah, well, I'd say Fast or Slow of Martin Brazel's horse has got a huge chance as well in it, you know. I'd say he's got a fantastic chance. Rightly so, missed the Savills Chase the other day due to the ground or whatever. But, you know, he would have got a devastating... He wouldn't have beaten Galopin Des Champs the other day, I don't think. But listening to Willie after in any of his interviews, he reckoned, you know, he'd been nervous to take on Fast or Slow with Galopin Des Champs at the DRF. So, you know, he's... You know, he's oh God, he's a He's a hell of a horse, Galopin Des Champs. He was absolutely sensational the other day. Uh, Clearly lost his confidence jumping in behind horses these last two runs, and they decided to ride him with a bit of space, and it's worked. And he was devastating the other day. One, I think it's the best performance I've ever seen in a Savage Chase ever.
Yeah.
Um, I thought he's the horse that they all have to beat now. But Fast or Slow has beaten him twice, and is still a bit of an underdog, which is amazing. Uh, but yeah, big chance, Fast or Slow. I would say, Jerry Colum got. I would agree with George. I would say he ran a little bit below, not much now, just a little bit, and might have got sucked into following a bang on form Galopin Des Champs into the straight very early and taking him on very early. And I did notice when Jack knew he couldn't get near him, he eased up on him at the back of the last. Hence why he was beaten the distance he was. You could probably, if Jack kept going and kept riding him and got stuck into him, you could bring him 10 lengths closer to Galopin Des Champs. So that's my view on that. Once Jack knew he couldn't get near that winner, he almost minded him.
Yeah.
And maybe he felt he wasn't quite right. I do agree with you now. He wasn't quite right, George. He wasn't quite right. He wasn't far off, but he was still second. But he definitely uh, won't probably beat Galvin Des Champs. But he's a horse that would absolutely have as good a chance as Brave Man's Game in the Gold Cup. Uh, Maybe even slightly better. High quality horse, only ever been beaten twice. Should have only been beaten once in his life. And the
If
extended
Dennis
half
O'Regan
mile.
was riding him that day in the Brown Advisory, he'd have won.
Well, that's it. But that's the winner got an exceptional ride on the day, and
Yeah.
he's probably not a bad horse either, the real whacker, on a going day. But Um, yeah, it's very open at the moment, but it's all Galopin Des Champs at the moment.
Can I
Yeah,
just
very much
this
so.
on actually on a similar note to what you're saying about Hewick, about not, but you can't bust a stayer. Did you say there was a touch of that in how Jack sort of
That's
sat off Jerry
that's what
Colom,
that's it, George. That's what's
just
happened.
worried about
I mean,
busting him? A, not finishing second. B, giving him a really hard race.
well, you must remember, like he was favoured for a period of time in the Savile Chase. It
Yeah.
wasn't until the off that Galopin Des Champs was favoured. You know what I mean? It was so they obviously the money came from, so they obviously believed in Cullen Tra, like that. They had the horse that was going to win. They were going to beat Galopin Des Champs on Galopin Des Champs' previous performances. So they didn't know what to expect again. And I reckon, yeah, Jack decided in the race that he wasn't going to leave off Galopin Des Champs an inch. And fair play to the horse, because the horse still took him better than any other horse. He still took him all the way with Galopin Des Champs, but he got into this awful struggle with him from the turn in Leopardstown, and that is a long way from the home. That's a long way from the line there, and definitely got involved early. And now, if he took his time in the Savage Chase, he just would have had a, a better second. He wouldn't have won, but he definitely is value for being a lot closer to Galopin Des Champs than he was at Savage Chase, because Jack definitely eased off him. Definitely, without a doubt, he definitely eased off him once he knew, and I think he got a terribly hard race there now, Jerry Colombe as well, but he might have just ran slightly below as well. Jerry Colombe would win a Lord Windermere Gold Cup. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
He probably just doesn't have that absolute top level class to win the Gold Cup this year anyway. And wouldn't have won it last year either. Might have been third to them two horses. So that's where you're at with Jerry Colombe at the moment. But this will be the first time in that he will have encountered an extended half mile at a staying track in this year's Gold Cup. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of improvement that will bring out in Jerry Colombe.
Yeah, 3 miles, 2.5 furlongs on the new course, where the emphasis is very much on stamina as opposed to the old course for the Brown Advisory, where it's very much on speed. So that's a positive for him for sure. I wouldn't be quick to write him off. I also should clarify, I'm not by any means advocating that people should be backing Brave Man's Game as a scumbag each way bet. I wouldn't back Brave Man's Game with stolen money, but I can see the.
He won't run again from now till Cheltenham anyway, will he?
No, I can't imagine he will.
If
he did, George, I'd be very worried about that. I wouldn't see that as a positive. If they threw him into an Aeon Chase, does that even exist anymore in this new fixture list? If they threw him into a Gold Cup trip, yeah. If they put him into a Denman Chase, I don't know if that would actually be something I'd see as a positive. I don't think he's the same horse this season.
No, but they won't run him. Nichols is savage, great trainer. He'll have him back and he'll have him right maybe for the Gold Cup. But I just think they dipped too many times now this year. Weatherby, hard race. Haydock, 2 weeks later, hard race. King George, 3 weeks later, hard race. You know, it's tough going.
He's got a lot of time to freshen him up and get him right now, though. And
he does. You're right. Yeah.
The positive is it's 2 seconds in grade ones. You could at least say that, and second to a progressive horse in Gentleman's Game. But I think you're the fat guy in the milkshake store. You're clutching at straws, really, if you're back in Brave Man's Game at this point.
Can I give a shout to one of the beaten horses as well?
Yeah, of course.
I've been really impressed, but I appreciate it this season. I thought he did very well the last day, splitting Fast or Slow and Galopin Des Champs, and he was running a huge race in the Savills before he just didn't stay. I think he's something like 14-1 for the Ryanair, and I can't see him going anywhere else. I think you could do far worse. You could do far worse than him, 14-1 the Ryanair. He's just looks a lot happier this year. I don't know. He's travelling kindly. He's jumping well. He looks to be really enjoying his racing.
Yeah, I get the positive from Dennis about Allaho. I'll be completely honest to say I don't see it that way. But I need to go and bang my head off the wall and recalibrate because I got almost everything wrong with the exception of found a 50 in the Racing Post Novice Chase. And everything else I got spectacularly wrong. So I need to recalibrate the head and see where I'm at with these bets. Stay with us on the Final Furlong podcast for more winning advice. Oh, dearie me. But Allaho at 9-4 makes absolutely no appeal to me for a Ryanair Chase. I'm really keen to go and take him on with something. Stage Star, that feature ITV were doing where they actually mic'd up, or they just put the ITV mic on Paul Nicholls and Harry Cobden before the race yesterday. I was doing an event, same event that I did with Shark Hanlon last year. So I didn't get to see that race until today. But that was a really interesting piece of information to get beforehand. Paul Nicholls didn't seem to fancy him at all. Like if you're in with a chance of winning, great, but don't give him a hard race, soft ground. He had a hard race the other day. This is all about getting him to Cheltenham in March. So don't like the fact that he pulled up, but I wouldn't rule him out. Envoy LN is the one who just screams at me and appreciated as well, George. Appreciated represents that new form line, but also a Stage Star form line. And they know he stays, at least he stays this trip. He won't stay 3 miles. So the Ryanair is surely the race to go for with him.
Do you know me? I'm president of the Envoy LM fan club, but just at the minute, I'll probably end up backing him on the day. But right now, I can't see appreciate it going off 14-1 in a field that's going to really cut up. Like, I just think he represents better value now. You're not going to get much more than 3 places on day. You might get 4, but you know where he's going. He's not going to go Champion Chase or Gold Cup, is he? And he's certainly not. No. I wouldn't think he'd go the handicap route. So. But I don't see why
they were giving him the fact that they had him in the 2 mile grade 1 chase till very, very late means that they were trying to decide what do we do with this guy? Do we go back? Do we go up? They've chosen to go up. Now they know he doesn't stay. You go intermediate trip again. He wasn't good enough in the Turners last year.
They had a good feeling he wasn't going to stay 3 miles. In fact, they had him in over 2.
Exactly. He's just he's a native up and ship. Yeah, he's just a difficult horse to place. He's a native up and ship. He's an Envoy LN, really. See, Envoy LN is down to 5-1 with some firms. Surely they're non-runner no bet. Yeah, they are. So William Hill and 888 have gone non-runner no bet today. Yeah, 5-1. No thanks. I'd be like you. I haven't had a bet in this race yet, but as things stand, Allaho would make no appeal to me. The question for both of you is Galopin Des Champs, we can all accept, is the most likely winner and the one they all have to beat. Who is the horse that really appeals to you that you would back right now if you had to against him? And is Shishkin on that list? George?
I can never be with Shishkin, to be honest. I just don't. I can't take any sort of a price about, unless he was a ridiculous price on the day. Like, you have to factor in so much of his sort of like little what you call them, idiosyncrasies. But
good word.
If I had to have a bet now, it probably would be Brave Man's Game each way. I think 16 to 1, 20 to 1's tremendous value. But again, he's not going to run between now and then. I'd probably wait until a bit close to the time. Probably wait for non-runner, no bet, to be honest. Because no, Nichols doesn't mind swerving Cheltenham. If it did come up soft, he might wait for the bowl. So I'd probably wait.
I was wondering that, actually. You won't. If you go for the bowl, you're not going to have to face basically any of the horses. Maybe Shishkin, but that's about it. That's the only one that would actually rock up there. All the main contenders will be out of the way.
Non-runner, no bet nowadays. The prices hardly change anyway, because they're priced up as if they're there on the day anyway. Ante-post. There's not a lot of value in these markets. So even
if odds checker are right, William Hill really don't like Brave Man's Game, because they're going industry best price 20s with non-runner no bet for the Gold Cup.
With non-runner no bet. Okay.
Yeah.
If you have a William Hill account, I'll take that.
George is coming for you, William Hill. He's coming for you. Dennis, who appeals to you for the Gold Cup as the prices currently stand, or does anything appeal to you?
Is Gentleman's Game out for the season?
No, he's meant to come back for the Cotswold Chase.
I give him an each way chance in the Gold Cup.
Is there a chance he goes Ryanair to avoid Jerry Colombo, though?
No. No way. Because he's not quick enough. He's not going to beat. No, he looks a Gold Cup horse to me. He looks a Gold Cup horse to me. I don't think he's going to have the tactical pace for the Ryanair. You're going to have Envoy Allen there with way more speed than Brave Man's Game. He looks to me like a horse that's going to be better going out and trip as well. So he's going to be very fresh for the Gold Cup. He's not going to have taken on hardly any hard races throughout the winter. And Mouse Morris is a genius and does very, very well in the Gold Cup. And I think this horse has an each way chance in the Gold Cup.
And Brian Atchison was so classy talking about Galopin Des Champs. Several times he's called him the best horse in Scotto Star, but just accepted defeat very gracefully. They'll give it a go, but no excuses for Jerry Colomb. And just in awe of him, saying he'd love to own him, what a horse he is, and it's our job to compete against him, but you have to admire the horse as well. It's stunning stuff from Galopin Des Champs and everybody involved with him. Of one of the outsiders, could Naslam be headed down the Gold Cup route? Because the handicapper's done the Gary Moore team no favours whatsoever. A £12 rise after his demolition job in the Welsh Grand National. To be honest, he was so good there, George. My initial reaction was you got to throw him into a Gold Cup if it's soft ground.
Yeah, no, I said the very same like a few minutes after the race. But his mark might be blown for the National, it might not. We don't know, but isn't it? I think there are five or six horses that have won the Welsh National carrying 11.6 or more. They're Carville's Hill, Synchronised, Native River, the horse of
Secret Reprieve.
Secret Reprieve and Master Oats, isn't it? So out of them, you've got 3 Gold Cup winners, should have been 4 Gold Cup winners. You'd feel very silly come Friday of Cheltenham week if it came up soft and he wasn't in it. And it's something £750 to enter him now, I think. So you have to stick him in it. You have to, I think. Look, he's always been a horse we thought was really classy. Like, you have to. His first win as a juvenile, like, he absolutely blitzed them, and it was the same race Goshen had won the year before at Fontwell, and we're like, geez, this one might be even better. Like, it was breathtaking. I say he's 3 from 3 in blinkers now. He was totally wrong all last season. Like I say, the blinkers have done him the world of good because they've sharpened his jumping. First day I saw him schooling them, I was like, oh, geez, who's that? Like, it's a totally different horse. But so he was wrong last season. You take out last season, he's only been out of the first 2 once. Once was in the Beecher, which was his first run this year before we decided to put blinkers on him. And the other one was carrying top weight in the Fred Winter. It ran off at 140 as a 4-year-old in the Fred Winter. Other than that, and saying you take out last season, he's first 2 every single start he's ever had. But he's a proper horse. It's just, I think the fact that he was sort of in and around the placings in a lot of big handicaps last year, people have sort of stopped talking about him as a classy horse and more of a sort of, good old servant. And actually, he's got plenty of class. He really has. So if it came up heavy Gold Cup day, I'd probably back him, to be honest. But yeah, I think you've got to have him in there just in case, haven't you?
Well, that insight from you in the Christmas preview about the fact that he's unbeaten in blinkers as well. The blinkers were back on for the Welsh Grand National trial, back on for the Welsh Grand National itself. That was a massive one. But I think the favorite piece of analysis from most listeners was, he's got feet like dinner plates. Magic stuff from you. Absolutely magic. Could he follow and synchronize the Native Rivers footsteps, though, Dennis? Is he a player in the Gold Cup on soft ground? Does he need it to be soft ground?
Well, he would, I would say, need it to be soft ground. Clearly, George knows the horse, and George says, he fancied him if the ground was heavy, so he clearly wants heavy ground. He was very impressive, wasn't he? God, he showed fierce class and speed there from 4 out to 1 out in the Welsh National. And the handicapper clearly thinks he's put him into that level now, isn't he? Graded level. He's a horse that I feel again might come up short in a Gold Cup.
Cover your ears, George.
He's very, very impressive the other day. And, I absolutely love Gary Moore as a trainer. I think he's phenomenal. And I'd love to see him with a chance in the Gold Cup. Do I think it'll be heavy on the day? I don't know. But the Gold Cup is an altogether different kettle of fish than the Welsh National this year. I'd say it's one of the best Gold Cups for a long time. When you put in the likes of the home press, we haven't even mentioned him. There's so many, there's so many with chances in the Gold Cup this year. I think, when you look at it on the cold light of day, on the day, and Nassam was in the Gold Cup, and the ground was soft, not heavy, soft, spring soft. You just find it hard to say that he was going to win the Gold Cup. Now, I don't know the horse, and he looked very, very classy the other day, but he actually looked to me like a horse that could come back and trip. I don't know whether I'm right or wrong. Maybe I'm making no sense whatsoever. But on really heavy ground, I felt he was a horse that could actually come back and trip. He has that explosive burst, and you couldn't rule him out. Now you couldn't rule him out. Hanging on to him a bit and maybe riding him for a little bit of that kind of explosive burst, but I don't know if he would get the extra trip in the Gold Cup. I might be talking complete rubbish here now, George, and I'm sure you'll correct me in a second and feel free to do so. But to me, he wouldn't get the last quarter of a mile in the Gold Cup. And I know he was a very impressive Welsh National winner, and there is a steep finish in the Welsh National, and I get it. But effectively, the handicapper said he was £12 well in. Well, he won't be £12 well in the Gold Cup. So, so I don't know what you think of that, and he's obviously a class animal. There's also a race in Lingfield that might suit him, I think, isn't there? Very valuable race. And that'd be very heavy ground there, Maybe that's a race to consider,
Yeah, no, I 100% agree.
What about the Scottish National?
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I'm not saying by any extent of the imagination he's going to go and win the Gold Cup. I just think if you had a very wet week in March, you'd be very silly if he wasn't in it. Do you know what I mean?
It's possible. It's possible that could happen now as well, with the way the weather is. We had a very soft, if you remember the World Hurdle last year, it was bottomless. So
it was a bog.
They do happen heavy ground golf. It was Master Oaks. Was that heavy? Was it? I believe that wasn't.
Yeah. I rode in one Gold Cup was heavy. Bobsworth. I
Yeah,
was fifth. That
fine.
that year was heavy.
Oh,
Maybe
the year
Nathan
Sir
River.
Deschamps was second under
Yeah,
McCoy. Oh.
yeah. But that's right. Yeah, it was bottomless. But yeah, no, I just think you feel silly if he wasn't in it. And at the end of the day, it's about like the owners having a great time and having a good day out. And if you're going to give him, I think they want to go for the national, regardless of what we think. You know, he's the right race or isn't the right race. I think the Gold Cup is as good a prep for the national as any. In the, is he going to have that much harder a race in a Gold Cup off level weights with those horses than he would do carrying top weight somewhere else? Say maybe at Lingfield, giving lumps of weight away to everything on potentially bad ground. Like you say, they fair enough. Like he put in a monster performance at Chepstow the other day, but it's the first day he's ever not eaten up the next morning. Like he knows he's had a race. Like he's well, he doesn't anymore. He's over it now. But like, you know, for a couple of days he would have been off his feed and he'd have been a bit quiet. I just worry about maybe doing that to him at Lingfield. I suppose there's plenty of time from then till Aintree as well. But they're very sporting owners, and I think that if Gary says let's go Gold Cup, let's have a bit of fun, they'll probably go. As they must be the luckiest owners in racing. Like I was speaking to Gary about it the other day. I said, I don't think they've ever had a bad horse. Like they bought the first horse they ever had with us was a 0 to 100 horse, but he won 3 races and they paid 0 to 100 money for him. Like they've had Botox has Baron Alco, a horse called Casse Tete that won a good race round, is it Cheltenham or Newbury? He won a good race. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us. But there's Up 10 Down one, Nasalam. Like they've got a very good way of doing it. Rather than having 20 horses for $2,000 each, they just spend the whole lot on one and just try and find a nice horse. So you get a lot of owners that are obsessed with having a string and end up with a lot of very not very good horses. And this lot are like, no, we'll buy one a year and it's going to be a good one. And I've fair play to them. Like,
yeah, fair.
Then you've got somebody
brilliant.
Yeah, it's very well said. It's just interesting when you talk about how some owners like to have a string. Like clearly that's what Brian Atchison wants to do. It just turns out that his string is incredible quality.
No, but
everything is amazing.
He's spending John and his own money on every single horse in the string. No.
Yeah, true.
It's taken years. It's taken years for Brian to get to where he is now. I mean, Brian is in the game 10 years, like, and has had strings of bad horses, like, so he knows all about all the ones that never make it, all the ones that you don't even get to see. You know, they're going through them, like, so.
Yeah.
You know, it's he's only getting back what he's put in now, like, basically.
He's got some quality now, though. But it's all about Nasalam. Very, very exciting horse. Aintree sounds like the plan, but if it's soft ground for the Gold Cup, do not rule him out at all. And if the Gold Cup ended up being won by Brave Man's Game, for example, and it was soft ground, you'd be kicking yourself for not having Nasalam in there as well. If a horse like that ends up winning it, and there is some big upset, you should have been in there too.